Hey Dad, I'm gonna record a quick video here for you about how to use a belt. Now some of the stuff you've probably heard, some of it's worth hearing again. What I want to stress is a belt is not a back brace. It is not a back support. Now it does help reduce back pain and it does support your back, but not by the mechanisms most people think. What a belt is supposed to do is to increase pressure in your core, sometimes referred to as intra-abdominal pressure or IAP, and by improving how strong our core can contract, it will protect our back because instead of the back half of our body doing something, the rest of our core muscles will assist. So get the idea out of the head that it's to support the back and it's to activate the core. So first thing with bracing is normally when we think about activating our core, we think of like flexing our abs like we're on the beach, like pulled in, like the cute girls walking by. We actually want to do the opposite. We're trying to create intra-abdominal pressure, so pressure from the inside out. We want to get as big as possible. So you want this to spill over. And if you see a big guy, their belly should be spilled over the belt because the belt is pressing in and you're pressing out. So you should press out 360 degrees around it. So the belt is giving you what's called a tactile cue. It's pressing on you. When you press on something, it's much easier to like flex a muscle when you're touching it. It's kind of hard to flex a muscle if you're not, but if something's touching it, you can flex it. It also gives you something to push against, so resistance. You know, nothing here, I can't really push on anything. So I'll put the belt on in a bit, but a couple of the drills that are done is we want to think about expanding 360 degrees around here. So that's not just here, but it's also here on the sides, and you can't really see it, but breathing into the back, so the low back should press out. A way to test this is think about like, I'm gonna press in here. Can I push the hand out with my abs? Can I push the fingers out with my abs? Can I do it on the side? I can. Can I do it on the back? I can. So that is building up a ton of pressure. So intra-abdominal pressure, pressure in the core. That's what I want you to think. Activating the abs, activating all the stabilizers. Yes, it supports the low back, but again, it's because it's generally taking a little pressure off the low back, not because it's physically supporting it. So I'm gonna put my belt on. With the rare exception of when you want to hit a true 1 rep max PR, sometimes we actually don't want it super tight, at least not restrictingly tight. Because again, I want to push out against it. So you should be able to put 2 fingers inside the belt, just slide them in there. That should be kind of how loose it is. Any tighter than that and you build up almost too much pressure, and sometimes that can burst blood vessels in your face, sometimes it can make people pass out. It's not necessarily bad. I've never had anything other than broken blood vessels coming from it, but there can be too tight just as there could be too loose. So find that where it's not restricting, but it's there. And so same thing, if I'm gonna brace against this, look at that belly. Like this is not what I want my dating profile to look like, but this is what we're trying to get. This is not flexed in like that, it's spilling over. And so kind of have a deadlift bar set up here. 2 ways to do this, and we practice this in our strength training so it translates to a Metcon, is I can get set up, my position to the bar is here, I can breathe at the top, and then hinge down to the bar and grab it and I'm ready to go. I can get down there and I can breathe into the belt down here. Now that's sometimes a little harder the bigger the belly that you have. So you can pick one of those 2 strategies for deadlifts. Again, we're creating that pressure to press out. The squat pattern is a little different. I don't know if you've ever watched my squat videos, but you've got it on your back and you'll see me do a big breath in. And notice that I'm not holding and flexing, I'm pressing out. And then you hold it with more air on top of there, your abs can flex tighter over the top, creating more pressure. Then I hold it all the way down to the squat and I don't release it until I'm coming out. The last piece, how this works on an overhead press. For an overhead press, it's nice because it's supporting you, but it's also a tactile cue. For a lot of people with bad shoulder mobility, now that is me, that is also you, when we press up, we're gonna arch our back like this. This allows us to get a little bit of our chest involved and make up for our lack of mobility because now it's overhead. Ideally, we would of course want up and through, and that's not super great, but what we don't want is what's called a rib flare, like that. So this belt helps me lock it down forward. So those are the three main reasons that, or three main lifts you would use it for: overhead lifts, deadlifts, and back squats or front squats. So it increases your stability, which increases your strength output. Now, how to wear it in conditioning workouts. Ideally, we practice the breathing and bracing a little bit so it's like second nature, because when you're tired, you don't want to be thinking about it. It's also a little bit less important in something like a Metcon where you're thinking, I'm not trying to add hundreds of pounds, of just trying to make it a little bit easier. So sometimes for a Metcon, I put it on just a little bit looser. I don't think about my breathing as much in a Metcon. That's why we train it outside of Metcon or even train it on the bike. The last consideration is, do you need it in a Metcon? So for most Metcons, unless it's a heavy weight for me, I don't wear it. Now, that's because I don't need the core stability. You end up maybe losing some time taking it on and off. There's also a little bit of building up this pressure does reduce the oxygen in your brain because you're holding your breath a little bit. So that's why it's fine for strength work, because we do a set and then we rest. A Metcon, it can kind of make you a little bit more lightheaded. So depending on the Metcon, if it had like 20 deadlifts for me at 135 for me, or like 65 for you, probably wouldn't put a belt on. It's not, you don't need that extra help. It's cumbersome to take on and off depending on how many rounds are in there. But if I have something that's like a Metcon with a heavy 405 deadlift or like a 200-pound clean, I will put it on. It's worth it for me there to lose a little bit of time. So take that into consideration. I hope that helps. Please ask any questions that you think with that. All right, Dad, love you.